do a little intro.
Yep, do whatever you want.
Welcome back to another edition of Penn State 365 podcast. I'm publisher of the Penn State Rivals website, Richie Schneiderite, and I'm joined by co-host Dylan Callahan Crawley. Dylan, game's technically not over yet,
Yeah,
but
still got about 2 minutes here.
it's kind of over,
Not.
unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing could talk about this one for a while here. I'm not sure how long we're going to stay on, but I mean, every fear that Penn State fans had about the offense coming in this game, and sorry if as I move my camera here a little bit.
No.
Every concern that Penn State fans had about the offense coming to this game, it reared its ugly head today. This was a completely terrible performance from the offense. Mike Yurcich's play calling wasn't great, but at the same time, I think both him and Drew are a little handicapped by what this wide receivers room is at this point. And it's been that way all season, and that's not taking. And I'm not trying to take blame away from Drew or Mike Yurcich in this loss, but because neither one was good in this loss. I mean, Drew was. This was by far the worst we've seen Drew. He has not looked good now in 3 road games for Penn State. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, even if Drew was great and Mike Yurcich had his best day, I'm not sure Penn State was going to be able to move the ball at any consistent rate with this wide receiver room that they have.
Yeah, no, it's been brutal, and I honestly I take a little bit of blame too because like I hyped up Cephas. I saw his tape coming into the offseason. I thought he was going to be this
I
superstar wide
I think
receiver.
a lot of people did. I think him not being able to get in until the summer definitely hurt his ability to be an impact player for this Penn State offense. But at the same time, uh, at one point or another, the guy either has it or doesn't have it. I do think if he should probably stay for another year. I think next year he'll be much better for Penn State. But at this point, this is you know the you would have put up with all the struggles he's had this year if he shows up today. And I wasn't expecting him to show up today, but I mean, we're now 8 weeks into the season. Dante Cephas has been basically a zero in this offense. Let's call it what it is. The wide receiver room outside of Keandre Lambert Smith and Harrison Wallace the third has been a zero this season. Penn State, I said a few weeks ago, they finally have the quarterback that has the talent to be that guy. I know Drew struggled today. He completed 30% of his passes, but
Yeah,
it's very Penn State to finally have that quarterback and not have the wide receivers. And I say that as somebody who's been watching Penn State his whole life. I mean, I grew up in central northeastern Pennsylvania, where Penn State is king. I've been watching the Nittany Lions for 20 plus years. They've always had those type of wide receivers who kind of make a difference, but the time that they have the quarterback, they don't have the wide receivers. But I mean, as a whole, this is just another part of this series between Ohio State that Penn State, when the lights are on, just can't get it done against the Buckeyes outside of one fluky win in 2016. Let's call it for what it is.
yeah. I mean, obviously, there's still 2:41 left. Ohio State just missed a field goal kick, 20-6, but it's 14 points, 2:41 left, no timeouts. It's just very unlikely.
Yeah,
But
it's
no,
going to take a miracle.
yeah, you're right. The wide receiver room, I don't know what the hell is going on. Like it's Harrison Wallace, it's Keandre Lambert Smith, and that's it. And there's not a true number one. I know we've seen glimpses of it from Smith, maybe,
Yeah.
and we've seen glimpses in the past from Wallace. Maybe that's even stretching it a little bit. I feel like, but it's mostly just Keandre Lambert Smith, and if he's
Yeah.
going to get covered by CB1, there's nothing else they can do.
Yeah, and this comes back to the recruit under Taylor Stubblefield. We all know the recruiting wasn't great under Stubblefield. He did get some gems there, yes, but the depth that Penn State has, built at wide receiver over the last few years has been just it's not there where it has to be. Which, like I said, Penn State's had the wide receivers for quite a few years now. They were just missing that next level quarterback. And now they have that quarterback who could potentially be next level, and they don't have the wide receiver depth to make it work. I mean, this is still a Penn State team that I think goes 10-2 this season. But for Penn State
Yeah.
fans at this point, 10-2 is great and all. A New Year's Six Bowl is great and all, but at the end of the day, this is um, very much like the professional ranks in which if you don't win the championship at the end of the season, it really doesn't matter. And that's what, at the end of the day, this is all about for Penn State fans and, for James Franklin and this coaching staff. I mean, at the end of the day, this is another big opportunity missed when they had the opportunity. And I think, well, I guess clearly not at this point, but had a better team
Mhm.
to potentially beat Ohio State. The Penn State's defense, I still think coming out of this game is the best defense on the field in this game. They did a fantastic job of keeping Ohio State pretty quiet throughout most of the day. There's only one guy they really couldn't stop, and it's the one guy that nobody's going to stop this season in
Mhm.
college football.
Did you see
Um,
who just got a catch, by the way?
let's see. A
And
little
if,
behind on
if you're on
YouTube. Do you,
delay, you got yeah.
yeah,
It's the favorite wide receiver one that we just mentioned.
yeah,
Had no catches at all day, and then
yeah.
finally gets one.
It is what it is for Penn State at this point, but
Yeah.
the wide receiver depth is poor. And, you could say this offseason, Drew's going to be able to take that next step in his development. But unless Penn State goes out and gets a big wide receiver to add to this offense, I'm not sure that I see a major improvement coming for the offense next season as we stand right now, because at, I mean, who in this wide receiver room is going to step up between now and next season? I mean, it's a big question mark. At the beginning of the season, we thought that Malik McClain could be that guy. Malik
I
McClain has been
forgot all about him too.
he's been again another zero for this Penn State offense since that Illinois game.
Jeez.
It's just, I mean, this Penn State offense has some of the playmakers to be great, but and they had a good day running the ball early, but
Mhm.
Ohio State learned pretty quickly they didn't have to respect this Penn State passing attack, and was able to shut down the run from then.
I mean, it also goes to show you the offensive line was just not there today either. I know
No,
Fashanu is pretty good; he's been pretty solid. But the interior, I thought the interior was absolutely terrible.
yeah,
Um, between the guards, Norzad was okay, but I guess you can really only do so much when both your guards are struggling. And
and this
Caden Wallace is just, I don't know.
this is an Ohio State defensive line that's been good, very good throughout the season, but wasn't
Mhm.
playing your lights out ball that you came into the season, coming into this game. We're thinking, this is going to be a very tough matchup for Penn State's offensive line. They're mismatched
Yeah.
or anything like that. I thought they were going to get a challenge, but I thought they were going to play much better than they did today. It's just one of those things. Penn State, in these big games, they seem to just struggle with putting it all together. Uh,
Mhm.
and I Ohio State at the end of the day has those guys who has the it factor. I mean,
Yeah.
offensively, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. On the defensive line, it's JT.
JT,
I'm not going to
defensive
try to,
line.
I'm not even going to try to say his last name. I'll butcher it. But JT in the fourth quarter of these last two Penn State Ohio State games has come alive and made the difference.
Yeah. No, it's their whole defense just shut down this Penn State offense, and I don't know if it's a combination of things. You said it before: the wide receivers. I said the offensive line, the quarterback play was
Yeah,
eh. The play calling, I don't know what the hell the play calling was, but
man.
that was brutal by your side.
Yeah,
And
it was a brutal day for yours. There's a lot of
Mhm.
questionable play calls. I thought it was some quality play calls. Like early in the game, he had a 3rd and 1. He decided to pass the ball instead of run the ball.
Mhm.
And had it not been knocked down, sorry, had it not been tipped at the line of scrimmage by Josh Proctor for Iowa State, it may go. It goes for first down. It may go for 6.
Mhm.
But I thought he brought out some questionable trick play calls throughout
Yeah.
a couple times that kind of just took momentum away from the Penn State offense as well.
There was the one, I guess, behind the line of scrimmage pass to Keandre Lambert Smith, and it looked like he was getting ready to chuck the ball at one point, and I was just like, oh, he's got zero time whatsoever, and he
Yeah.
made the right call by just taking it out of bounds, but
Uh,
man, oh man, like,
Another big deciding factor in this game, Penn State coming in the day was one of the best teams on converting 3rd downs this season,
mhm,
somewhere around 40%. Um, as we talk, they're facing a 3rd and 6 here, but so far they're over 15 in the game. I mean,
yeah,
just they completely abandoned what did work for them coming to this game, uh, and then I mean we haven't seen the T formation on any short yardage
no,
today. Um,
yeah.
not
Not
that
saying
much
you
as
have to, but like,
yeah, but I
still, it
mean
works. If it works, it works. Like,
the play call today wasn't great, but not the one right for this offense today. I know the defense gave up. Let's see what the final tally is here.
oh, there you go. Something just went right. and another receiver they haven't used at all until now, Caden Saunders.
Yep. Unfortunately for Penn State, it's a little too late. Just 29 seconds left here.
Yeah.
They're going to end up losing this one by lose by 7 here, probably. Six. Will they go
Looks
for
like they're gonna
2?
go for 2.
Well, it makes sense to go for 2 here, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's a little too late for the Penn State offense.
Yeah.
Instead of instead of just rehashing the same thoughts over and over again in this game, I guess we could probably start talking about what went right, what went wrong from start to finish in this one.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
good.
no, I was just saying it before. There's a lot going on today too, and then Chop gets carted off too, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
like that worst case scenario.
And yeah, it was really a lot of worst case scenario for Penn State. And you thought maybe with that Chop injury that this is going to be now a long day for the Penn State defense. But Penn State, and let's start there because at that time it was a 3-3 game for Penn State, and this could be very much the series to decide this game. Chop goes down with that injury. Looks like maybe an upper body head injury for Chop Robinson. We'll see how long he's out. But at that time, you're like, oh no, this is big. Penn State loses, that key guy. We saw this back in 2017. Penn State lost, I think, Garrett Sickles. I forget. Yeah. Penn State lost somebody in 2017 in that game, and they didn't have the pass rush to combat Ohio State's offense at that point. Then just a play or two later, denied Dennis Sun and strip sack of Kyle McCord. Curtis Jacobs picks it up, takes it to the house. But Kalen King called for a hold on Marvin Harrison Jr. Before the fumble, negates the touchdown, gives Ohio State a first down. King gets called for a DPI while giving up a first down a couple plays later. And then after a mean man over unsportsmanlike conduct play, Mayan Williams, puts it in from 2 yards out, and Ohio State takes the 10-3 lead. But that 7-play sequence of this game ultimately decided this game. Because I think it's what ultimately decided the game. It was a 14-point swing, and everything went right for Penn State for one play, and then everything went wrong.
Yeah, I'm just watching right now. I mean, I get it, like it's a touchdown and all, and you got to celebrate a little bit, I guess. But in this moment, if I'm oh my God, they're letting Keandre throw again, and incomplete. Why are you getting tricky on a 2-point conversion? Like I don't understand some of these calls today.
I think this has
3rd and shorts. Like what are they doing?
This is up there with I think one of the worst games Mike Yurcich has just called as the offensive coordinator of Penn State.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of hype around him, and I know he's putting up numbers. He's doing really good until they get to these 2 games. They get to these 2 games, and I don't know. They just lose all control.
Yeah,
and it makes no sense to me. Like, don't get me wrong, the run game's been this year, and Singleton's numbers, if you do it like yards per carry, are pretty good. It's over 5.
Yeah.
I mean, but they just stop using them kind of. And I get it. Like you got to kind of balance it between him and Katron, but got to give the kid a chance more. I would say if Singleton's your bell cow at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you have to give him more than 9 fucking carries.
I will say with Singleton too, he did miss a couple opportunities this game to make some long runs. His vision this season has just been poor, to say the least. He missed on one drive early in the 3rd quarter. He missed 2 opportunities that could have been game-changing runs, and that's the difference between Penn State and Ohio State right now. Is Ohio State's playmakers tend to make those big plays when needed. Penn State's guys have come up short year after year. But going back to that touchdown, I mean, Ohio State scores that touchdown, takes a 10-3 lead. Penn State comes back with probably their best drive of the game, goes 7 plays, 51 yards, cuts it to a 10-6 game, gets them right back into it. And I think a lot of people thought right after that Penn State was, going to be able to – that after that touchdown, that was where it starts getting away from Penn State. Ohio State ends up, running away with it. But Penn State got themselves right back in the game with that. But, I mean – in the second half, the offense was non-existent. You look at it, 4 for 16, 3 plays 2 yards, 3 plays 9 yards, 3 plays 0 yards, 4 for 6 yards, 8 for 3 yards. And then finally, at the very end, when it frankly doesn't matter because Ohio State just got the ball back on the onside kick.
saw that.
When it doesn't matter, Penn State's offense goes 12 plays, 73 yards. Albeit, Ohio State wasn't playing, you know, they're playing a little bit of a prevent defense there, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they go 12 plays, 73 yards on their very last drive, but it's too late. I mean, there's 2:41 left on the clock and you're down 14 points, you cannot afford a 12 play drive that
No.
takes 2 minutes 12 seconds off the clock. And this has been the problem for Penn State's offense all year. This was the problem coming into this game that we talked about last week. And excuse me as I get tissue here.
No, no, no. You're good. I just don't get the logic behind the team how they go averaging 40 points a game against every other Big Ten opponent. And
I think what it comes down to is Penn State over the last 6 weeks had the talent advantage, and it didn't really matter because they had the better athleticism, speed, and talent to best those teams. Against Ohio State, we said coming into this game that there's an off chance it could work, but most likely what Penn State was trying to do this year in terms of offense, not having any explosive plays, not pushing the ball down the field.
Yeah.
It's obvious the reason they're not doing that is because they cannot do it because of the wide receiver room. Wasn't going to work against Ohio State. I mean, and that's what this game ultimately came down to. They can't be there. There's no explosion in this offense. I mean, Drew was checking down a lot today. Again, wide receivers aren't getting separation on the field, but you cannot beat Ohio State or Michigan while on 3rd and 15 checking it down in the fourth quarter for a 5-yard reception. I mean, it's a lot of this is on the play calling, but a lot of this is and a lot of this is on the wide receivers. But I mean, at some point or another, your quarterback has to try to make plays late, and Drew didn't try to make those plays late. And I know the plays aren't there, but I don't know how this offense just is what it is at this point. It may be averaging 40 points a game, but it's an offense that isn't going to get the job done against these better defenses.
Yeah, that's exactly what it seems like. And then you see all of social media kind of going nuts right now, saying this and that about Franklin, and I guess rightfully so. Like the man, he's got to get to that next level, or otherwise,
we said
every New York Six and every New York Six poll. Like, cool, that's great, but doesn't mean shit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, a 10-win season, 11-win season's great, but 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was, James Franklin gave the whole speech of trying to go from great to elite. Well, this was your opportunity to go from great to elite, and at the end of the day, there was one clear elite team on the field today, and it wasn't Penn State. The defense may be generational, the defense may be elite, but I mean, Penn State still, they've yet to put together a complete team under James Franklin. Maybe you could point back to that 2017 team, but that 2017 team still had the same issues that a lot of these Penn State teams under James Franklin have had. And a lot of it, sometimes that comes down to mental mistakes, but today it wasn't, mental mistakes costing Penn State. Today was that the offense, which has had its issues all season, which have been discussed all season, have showed up today. And against a very good Ohio State defense, if you're not explosive, you're not going to win. You're not going to win.
Yeah, and I don't know how you get to that next leap. And I know you're saying the defense is elite, and I don't disagree with you today. Today they were beyond elite, but you're losing so many guys now.
Yeah, the defense. So I expect the defense to still be very good next season for Penn State. And there's a good question about when will this team take the next step. Penn State's defense, I still think next year is a top 15, 20 defense in the country. But again, the offense, Drew can take that next step in his development. The offensive line could be better. The running backs could be good. All that could be better. But what's going to change in this wide receiver room when you're potentially losing Condre Lamberts-Smith, your best wide receiver? And there's no clear guy who's going to step up into a number one wide receiver spot next year. Penn State absolutely has to hit the transfer portal this offseason and hope that they can land a difference maker. They missed on a few difference makers this offseason in the portal. I don't know if they make a difference today, but it's a very good question. If it wasn't today, when is it going to happen for Penn State? And it's a very good question. It's a very good question.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at the wide receiver room for next season. I know it was technically Lambert, Smith, Cephas. They actually, I guess everyone technically comes back if they want.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody could technically return, but I mean,
they're still not good though.
yeah, what's gonna change from this year to next year? Are they gonna learn how to magically get separation against better defenses? I feel like that's one of those things. I mean, some of the younger guys, sure, but I
Mhm.
mean, Amari Evans was supposed to be a deep threat this year. We haven't seen him at all this year.
Yeah, that's true. Murray
Uh,
Evans is the weirdest one
that,
because we saw him all last season, and I didn't even think he was going to burn his red shirt, and then he goes and plays what, like 8, 9 games? He might have played more
yeah,
just because special teams.
and he showed flashes last year. He played in the end of that Utah game last year.
Hmm.
He showed flashes, but Penn State, I mean, something in his development obviously hasn't got a plan this year, and he's a non-factor out there, like most of Penn State's wide receiver room, which may be harsh, but it is what it is at this point, and I don't think it's going to magically change this season. This Penn State offense is what it is.
Hmm.
It may end the season averaging 38 points a game, but at the end of the day, this is
Doesn't mean anything.
and it's a pretty mid offense, all things considered. There's just no what we can talk about the running backs and how great they are, how elite they should be, but they should be elite. They should be great.
Hmm.
The running backs this season have been very. Katron Allen's been very good. Nicholas Singleton has his moments, but neither one has been a game changer on the offense this year. And I think that's also a big part of this. Penn State, 8 weeks in the season, 7 games in the season, cannot have make any consistent explosive plays, and it cost them this weekend. As of now, I think Michigan may roll this Penn State team in a couple of weeks. And yeah, they still go 10-2, but at this point, 10-2 to a degree doesn't cut it. It cuts it for some people. Um, and yeah, it's a great season. It'll
Hmm.
be James Franklin's, fifth 10-win season or something like that
Yeah.
in Happy Valley. But it's a pretty empty 10-win season at that. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to get over these humps. Yeah, yeah. Next season, playoffs expand. Penn State should be a perennial playoff team. But if you can't get past Ohio State and in the regular season, what makes you think you're going to be able to get past some of the other great teams in the country in the college football playoffs?
Yeah. No,
And
I
and I'm not,
disagree.
and I don't think if this game is played in Beaver Stadium this week that it's a much different result. I think Ohio State still wins this game because at the end of the day, Penn State's offense has no explosion whatsoever.
Yeah, and I see Corey Geiger trolling already on Twitter. Um,
This
no,
is one of those games where everybody who had issues with, Corey got a lot of shit for his
yeah,
question,
of course.
and
He just
and,
worded it wrong, like really
and yeah,
poorly.
it could have been worded a bit better, and he was the first one to say it. But everything he brought up in that question was a le- everything he meant to bring up in that question was a legitimate issue with this offense.
Hmm.
Uh, and at the end of the day, James Franklin's going to give his coach speech, coach talk, or coach speak
Coach speak.
about
Yeah.
this offense. But at the end of the day, all the all the issues with this offense, this team, come back to the offense, and that's on their recruiting on the offensive side of the ball.
Hmm.
That's on their uh, play call. And it's on the coaching. At some point this season, no, at no point this season has it felt like the wide receivers have taken a step forward from week one.
No,
If anything, it feels like the wide receivers have taken a step back since week one.
yeah. Now that's the thing though. Like, who do you blame that on? Do you blame it on Yursich for not getting them open? Do you blame it on the wide receiver coaches who? Do you blame it on Stubblefield? Do you blame it on Hagens? Because Hagens is only, I know he's only been here for what, like 7 months, 8 months now, or something like that. So like,
Yeah, I don't think you could. I don't think you could blame it too much on uh, Higgins because he's only been here for a few
such a
months.
short time. Yeah.
Um, I mean, we'll see if it's coaching come next year. If they improve over the
Well,
offseason, if they improve over the offseason, okay. If it's the same struggles next year, there's probably a little bit of a concern. But
mhm,
I think it goes back to recruiting. Yes, you can land the Jahan Dotsons of the world and all
mhm,
that. And he landed some good wide receivers.
true.
Um, and that's a credit to him. But at the end of the day, Penn State's depth at wide receiver it has not been good enough to be a difference maker in the Big Ten. I mean, Michigan hasn't killed it in wide receiver recruiting, but also Michigan's offensive line rarely allows J.J. McCarthy to be under pressure. Penn State's offensive line, which, while improved in the biggest game of the season, still struggled today. And I will say, I think this Michigan team, I think this is a very good Ohio State team, but I still think Michigan is a much better team than both Penn State and Ohio State after this week. I think this Ohio State team is very capable of being beaten. That offense is quite rough. If Michigan can find a way to limit Marvin Harrison Jr., which is hard, I think Michigan has a chance to win big in that game. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, the players have to make plays, and Penn State's players the last few seasons haven't made enough plays.
Yeah. Now here's the funny thing. We're talking a lot of trash about this team, but I mean, rightfully so. They played like dog shit. There's no way around it. But at the
Yeah,
same time,
I wouldn't even say talking trash.
We're talking a totally different story. Like,
but I wouldn't even say it's talking trash. I mean, at the end of the day, our job is to provide analysis on Penn State football.
Yeah.
And the offense, despite all of the success it has had this year, has been rather lackluster. We said coming into the game, into this stretch of the season after the bye week, if Penn State was going to make a difference in this season from the last few seasons, the offense had to be more explosive. They had to show something. Was it, were they sandbagging it the first few weeks, not showing much, or was this what the offense was? It's clear after this game, this is what the offense is. Penn State's offense is an offense that they're going to look to beat you by paper cuts. This is a slightly more athletic Iowa offense. That's what it is.
Yeah, and that's not good. That's not a good thing for.
No, this is pretty much an Iowa team this year, an elite defense with an offense that looks to beat you by paper cuts. It's just not slightly. It is just quite a bit more talented than Iowa's offense. It has guys who can beat the lesser athletic and talented teams. But when you're facing a team like Ohio State, who has high 4-star, 5-star talent all over the field, it's not going to get the job done.
Yeah. And it seems like just like I said this to you off the pod, I'll say it on here too. It doesn't for Drew, like it's such a big moment for him, and he just you can't blame him too much, but you do have to blame him a little bit. I don't know if it's the fact that this game was in Ohio. Obviously, grew up in Ohio State.
Yeah, he looked bad.
Whatever. Is it the crowd getting to him because this is his first like major moment? Like, is it a combination of both? Like, what he just didn't look good. He like 19 of like 40. What was it? 1943, 1842.
Yeah,
that's
the
all
pressure was. I think the offensive line was allowing too much pressure. I think the pressure was getting to Drew. He was throwing. His mechanics were quite terrible today. And I don't say that about Drew a lot. A lot of anybody knows who reads our stuff, listens to PSU 365 podcast. I'm very high on Drew Aller. I think he's still a first round draft pick. Yeah, I think he still has a chance to be a first round draft pick. But this was by far his worst game, and through 3 games, he has not been very good on the road. And I think some of that's play calling. And at no point today did I feel like Penn State's offensive play calling allowed him to get comfortable in the game. You look at what Ohio State was doing in this game. Ohio State early on to try to get Kyle McCord comfortable was hitting a lot of quick passes, getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Penn State didn't have any of that today.
Yeah, and that goes back to that wide receiver room.
And again, this almost all comes down to the difference in this game. Because I don't want to say – because the Ohio State offense today wasn't great. It wasn't.
No.
And I know I may get shit from Ohio State fans for saying that, but you look at Ohio State's offense today, 286 yards through the air, 79 yards on the ground. Penn State kept Ohio State's offense to 1.9 yards on the ground today. Phenomenal.
It's just
the difference, but
the opposite.
Now you go to the passing. Yeah, you go to the pass attack for Ohio State. There was 2 guys who were the difference makers. The 2 guys that we highlighted on the PSU 365 podcast coming this week, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Cade Stover. Harrison Jr., 11 for 162, 1 touchdown on 16 targets. Cade Stover, 4 receptions, 70 yards, 17.5 yards per reception for Stover. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 162 of 286 receiving yards for Ohio State. Stover made up, another 70. At the end of the day, those 2, but really Marvin Harrison Jr. was the difference in this game. And Penn State just doesn't have that one guy right now who can change the game like that. They've had that guy in the past. They've had a Jahan Dotson. They've had a Chris Godwin. They've had even a Parker Washington or Mitchell Tinsley. They don't have that guy this year. Keandre Lambert-Smith's a very good wide receiver, but he couldn't get separation for most of this time.
No, he's extremely talented, and it didn't matter who you put on him. And like even Kalen King had his struggles today. Like I know,
Yeah,
I hyped him up to you in the past. He's been great, but then today he's getting pass interference calls. He's making stupid plays, and it's like I don't know if he's overcommitting at times, and he wants to get that pick, and I get that, but you can't do that with Marvin Harrison. Like he's that good. I'm sorry, but
yeah, no, Kalen King had a very rough day, and I mean, when you go back to that sequence of plays in the second quarter, that sequence of plays ultimately was the decider in this game to a degree. I mean, it's a 10-3 game at that point. It very well could have been 10-3 Penn State had he not committed a holding on Marvin Harrison Jr. And it was a ticky-tacky call. But at the end of the day, you're supposed to be a first-round draft pick cornerback. You can't make that penalty. You cannot make that penalty. And at the end of the day, he made that penalty. We've been talking about the offense for a while. Going to the defense a little bit. Going to the defense for a little bit. You look at it. Ohio State ended with 365 for almost 5 yards per play. That's not great, obviously, but I thought the defense gave the offense so many opportunities in this game to take advantage of. I mean, that defense was phenomenal for most of the day. They got gassed, I think, at the end. And Ohio State, give credit to Ryan Day and Brian Hartline. They made some really nice play calls in the second half that picked up big yardage. But at the end of the day, Penn State kept one of the most talented teams in the country to 20 points. I don't think there's anybody who can blame the Penn State defense for this loss.
Sorry, that was going nuts.
But in the fourth quarter, they allowed 5.7 yards per play, and I think that's where the defense started getting a little gassed.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I keep seeing everyone on Twitter and our boards too, especially. Everyone's like, fire Franklin. It's like, can't fire him over that.
And here's the thing about Franklin, and I get everybody's point about, they haven't won the big ones under Franklin, and that's a fair point. It very much is. But who's Penn State going to get better than James Franklin? I don't think there's anybody out there who's better for this program than James Franklin.
I'm seeing higher Manny Diaz, and it's like, dude, what difference is that really going to make?
No, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, this is. I don't think there's much more that James Franklin could actually do. I mean, you could point to some recruiting battles, but I think a lot of Penn State fans out there probably have an unrealistic expectation of what where Penn State football is in terms of recruiting and what Penn State football ceiling is. This isn't the 70s and 80s and 90s where Penn State is, one of the teams in college football. This is a much different game now. And recruiting wise, what James Franklin's able to do in recruiting is already quite a miracle, because there's not a lot of kids who want to come to Penn State. There's not a lot of kids who want to come to the middle of central Pennsylvania, where it's terribly difficult to travel to, where you're going to freeze your ass off for half the year. I mean, it's hard to bring kids out of the South, where a lot of the talent is these days, and get them to come to Penn State. It just is what it is. And he does a great job of what he's able to do. But I mean, there's not much more that James Franklin could do. And I think that's ultimately also the problem with this loss, is if it's not this year, when is it going to happen for Penn State? This was the most beatable team Ohio State has had in quite a while. And Penn State wasn't able to get the job done. So when will it happen for Penn State? I think that's a very fair question to have at this point. When is Penn State going to get over the hump? They have the quarterback talent to do it. They have the defense to do it. But now they don't have the wide receivers to do it. It unfortunately for Penn State is that it seems like there's always going to be something that forces them to come up short.
Yeah. And it's not like I'm looking at recruiting right now. Like I know, like everyone's like, oh, well, they're bringing in like this guy and this guy, and it's like, well, number one, they don't. I don't even think they have a 4-star wide receiver right now coming in. Do they? Denmark technically. Um, but he's like, you can't expect a true freshman to just come in and be the guy. Like you gotta hit this portal this offseason. You're gonna have to hit it hard, and I don't care what
Yeah.
it takes. I don't know how much money's in that NIL bank technically. You're wasting all that on as many transfers as you can, like from the wide receiver room specific. Probably need a left tackle too. I guess Drew Shelton could probably step up, but
Yeah, I think the offensive line will be fine next year.
mhm.
Um, I think the defense take a step back a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the best defenses we've ever seen,
Hmm.
but um, yeah, just how do you get better on the offensive side of the ball with because I don't think any guy they have right now in this 2024 recruiting class at wide receiver is an immediate impact player.
Hmm.
You look at it, I think Peter Gonzalez has a chance to be a really damn good wide receiver.
Oh yeah.
Tyzer Denmark, really good chance. I don't see any of them being first year guys necessarily. Maybe they are. Maybe
Hmm.
I don't see it. Josiah Brown, another guy who wasn't expected to be a first year guy, definitely not going to be a first year guy. I'm not going to give too much. I don't know what's out there publicly about his
No, it's
injuries.
all out there. You could,
It's all out there.
yeah,
Josiah Brown
MCL, ACL,
blew out his knee.
meniscus. His knee's just
Yeah,
shot now, but
yeah, blew out his knee. Very tough for him. I mean, we hope all the best for Josiah going forward on the
mhm.
recovery from that. Terrible for him, but he wasn't going to be a first year guy probably. I mean, they have to go to the transfer portal this year. I mean,
Hmm.
um, it's one of those things where after this type of loss for Penn State, it's back to the drawing board.
Yeah, no, you're not kidding. I'm looking at the scholarship chart right now, and it's. I know Caden Saunders has been hyped up for years. Anthony Ivy's been hyped up for a couple years now. Liam Clifford's been hyped up, and he hasn't. Harrison Wallace, like these guys just haven't done anything. You need them to get to that next
Yeah,
level. If
I
you,
mean, Caden Saunders was supposed to be that guy, right?
yeah,
Top, I think we had him
speed,
as a top
speed.
100 recruit on Rivals. Um, had a disappointing freshman year, didn't show up ready to go, and he was expected to take that step forward this year. Never took that step forward.
No, and I'm looking now too. I didn't even like click with me right now, but the use of tight ends today was just brutal too.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of our comments here on YouTube.
Yeah, I was reading a couple of them a second
Yeah,
ago.
just
It's
some great comments here. Um, Paul Wallace says this game was a total shit show. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's from an offensive standpoint, very fair assessment. Um, Lex Rex, you could see for years Penn State's not being able to recruit good wide receivers as a result.
hmm
I think they've recruited some quality ones, but yet they haven't recruited a difference maker in quite a few years since
yeah,
Parker Washington. And yeah, this is the result. I just don't see from MROB 456. I just don't see how we ever get over the hump. Franklin has done his best to bring this program where it is, but it'll always be just not good enough. And that's kind of what we just talked about. Um, what will it take to get over this hump? Um, where do you like? Do you see any places where Penn State can take that jump to the next level? I mean,
wide
I think
receiver.
the wide receiver, but will Penn State have the quarterback at all going forward? I think they've been recruited very well at quarterback, but Drew has the most talent we've seen of any Penn State quarterback in a
Hmm.
long time. You're not going to have another quarterback like Drew probably for a while. Um,
I mean, if you ask the board, they're going to tell you Bo, but everyone's favorite player is
I
always QB
well
two.
here,
So
and I feel like to a degree our post game recap here has been a little miscombobulated, whatever,
yeah, whatever.
and that's fine. We're going to have a more we have a PSU 365 podcast that's a little bit more
Hmm.
structured. But there's a lot to talk about in this game,
Oh
and
yeah.
this is the result. Um, are you surprised they didn't go to Bo at all in this game just to try to get some offense movement? Because it was
Yeah.
clear Ohio State didn't respect Drew's rushing abilities. Drew didn't show really the want to take off at all in this
Hmm.
game. Is there anything you surprised at that a bit? I mean, if I'm Penn State, what do you have to lose that point? It's not a lack of
Oh.
confidence in Drew. It's that
Mhm.
you need to get the ball moving, and at least Bo gives you a little bit of the ability to move the ball on the ground compared to Drew.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree there. I think it's an interesting concept because you also don't want to hurt you don't want to hurt your quarterback one's confidence,
Yeah.
especially because this is the game of his life. It's at Ohio native. I don't know, taking him out's tough, but I do think you could have probably sprinkled in a couple like packages just for Bo. We've seen him do it in the past, over the past entire season or
Yeah,
month or
and James
whatever.
Franklin said coming into this in a couple weeks ago that there was packages for Bo
Yeah,
with the first team offense, and I mean, you're pulling out flea flickers and double
all this other
passes.
stupid shit. Like
Why are you not going to pull out the Bo package there? I mean, what
him being on the field.
I hate to and I hate that this is what college football has come to a degree because I think it
Mhm.
devalues a lot of the sport that we love.
Yeah,
Um, but let's call it what it is. This is a 2-game season for Penn State. This this was the season. I mean, this was the season for Penn State. Yes, you have to win all the other games
hmm
outside Ohio State, Michigan, but they should win every other game besides the Michigan game going forward. But if you don't win this game today, I mean, none of the everything's stacked against you. Yes, you can still go out and beat Michigan in a month, but unless Ohio State drops one surprisingly here the next month, uh, I
they'd
mean,
have. I don't know how it would work, but technically, I guess if they lose to Michigan, Penn State beats Michigan, it's a total tie somehow, and I don't know who takes what, but
I think Ohio State would have the advantage. Well, yeah, well then no, it would go to tiebreakers of crossover opponents,
yeah,
which Penn State's hurt a lot by um, Northwestern. Penn State will also be helped a little bit by Iowa, assuming Iowa goes 11-1 this season, as they
it's very possible.
should. I mean,
It's a
about
weird team. I don't even want to get started with them.
it's now a 3-3 game between Iowa and Minnesota at the end of the
Holy
first
shit,
quarter,
they got points.
but they got points. The under is still alive though.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's a 2-game season for Penn State, and they lost the first one.
Yeah.
Now, is the season over? No. Can they still? Do they still have a lot to play for? Yes. Do they still have a
Yes.
shot at every single one of their goals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somewhat, yeah.
They
I
have a
mean,
shot at the playoffs
theoretically,
still. It's just
they have the shot, but um, this is this is a tough loss because the committee is going to look back at this loss and score
mm,
twice, 12-20 to 12, but it 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 was that close. That's the thing. It's not even like you can say this wasn't a close game. It was that close because the Penn State
yeah.
defense was so damn good. It's just I don't see this offense magically getting better enough to beat a much better team in Michigan in a month from now.
Yeah, Michigan's a weird one for me. It's home, so that definitely helps. You just got to get your quarterback confidence again, and luckily for Penn State, they do have two pretty easy ones coming up. And I shouldn't say easy, actually. Indiana's easy because
They should.
I think they're the worst team in the conference. Maryland, that's a little bit of a warm up, like a legitimate warm up. So we will see what happens there. I know they still should beat them, but it's just I don't know what you do. You got to get this wide receiver room in check. I don't know if you go into practice and you just chuck the ball deep or like like
Yeah.
what do you do? Like it's too late. It's already week 7 or week 8. Like it's tough. It's really tough. And then not being able to convert on third down, third and shorts. When you have arguably the second best running back tandem in the nation, maybe you can argue first at times. This year they've just been non-existent. They're not
Yeah,
getting those big plays.
they haven't played like it.
Yeah,
They
it's
haven't.
so. Trey Potts has looked better at times.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Singleton's vision this year has been very disappointing to say the least.
Yeah,
It just I feel like we're running in circles
I know.
with this.
Yeah, there's only
So
so much to
I
really
guess
say.
we could close up shop here in a little bit just because we're gonna have more post game coverage
Of
in
course.
the upcoming days. But I guess at the end of the day, the big question here for Penn State is, I mean, how do you respond from this game? I mean, Penn State's struggled in the past, coming off losses and not
Hmm.
having that, and having that one loss fall into 2 or 3 losses.
Yeah,
Next week against Indiana is a winnable game, but that
very.
game against Maryland, yeah, I think that's a toss up. That Maryland offense is better than this Penn State offense right now.
Yeah, it's
Um,
It's
And I
definitely
think
better,
we're
but the
starting.
defense stinks. So
I
they
think we're
they'll
starting
be
to get
fine.
to a point with this Penn State offense, and thankfully it's 8 weeks of the season for them. But we're getting to a point at this with this Penn State offense that if they're down, it, how many points is too many points for this offense to overcome? Like like against a solid defense.
I guess it really depends on who they're playing. Like if you're going against Michigan and you're down 14, I think that's it. Like I think
Yeah,
that might be it. Like you're done. Like you lost.
I think there's a serious question right now if Penn State can score Michigan.
That's going to be the big one because they're I've said it before. They might be the most complete team in Big Ten. Like and it's
I think Michigan's the best team in college football. I think Michigan has a great chance of winning a national championship this year.
the thing is that Harbaugh could fuck that up pretty quickly. So we'll see.
Yeah,
That's their big issue. It's always going to be coaching for them. But I don't know what else you could do on Penn State's front. Like if you're down 14 versus Michigan, it's going to be rough.
yeah,
You can't afford that at all.
yeah. Um,
Even today they were down what 10 or 10
yeah,
7, and it's like
it,
you still felt like it was like dead in the water.
yeah, I mean, it was third quarter, and Ohio State had a chance to take a 11-point lead, and I tweeted out, this is the game for Penn State. 11, if they score, it's game over for Penn State,
Hmm.
and that it would have been 11 points. 11. We've
Yeah,
seen in college football, offenses can score 11 points in the blink of an eye, or 12, 14 points in a
yeah,
blink of an eye. And I never, at one point today, did never feel like Penn State had the opportunity that they were going to be able to score multiple touchdowns.
yeah. It's just rough, and I don't know what you do at this point because you can't. I mean, Alar is your guy. You're not changing that. Your
No,
running backs are what they are, but you got to figure something out there. You might have to. I don't know what you do in practice. You start reaming into him, I guess, and telling
yeah,
him like, "Hey, I got Potts right here. He's a veteran. He's already. I think he's had over 1,000 yards at one season in Minnesota. Be like, hey, if you guys can't do this, I'm gonna start giving him more carries. You got to change something up. Like something's got to give.
yeah. It's just every, like I said at the top, every single issue that has plagued this offense this season
Hmm.
came back and reared its ugly head today, and it's the big reason that they lost this game. The defense wasn't perfect. The defense let up a couple big plays late.
Of course.
But I mean, the defense was gassed in the fourth quarter. The offense couldn't stay on the field. It is a soul searching win for Penn State and the offense going forward.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, a lot of soul searching has to be done. A
Yeah.
lot of soul searching has to be done, especially on that offensive side of the football. Who does this team want to be offensively? Because right now, this team through 7 weeks, I don't know if they have an identity outside of trying to beat teams by paper cuts, and that's not a winning identity. That
No.
is um, that is Big Ten West football, and Big Ten West football does not win
It's
championships.
awful, and I think we can both agree it's fucking brutal.
Iowa's a great program. There's a reason Iowa can't win the big games either, and it's because their offense is not built to win the big games. This Penn State offense isn't built right now to win the big games, which is really weird to say because the last few years Penn State's had a great offense. They've been able to put up points on Ohio State,
Yeah.
and this year when they have the arguably the best defense in the country, um, they don't have the offense that can even move the ball consistently. And when they have the quarterback to do it, it's always there's always seems to be another issue for Penn State, and it's just very very. This is
Yeah. I don't know.
it was a very I don't want to say shocking loss or the way it was done, but I think this one may be even harder for some Penn State fans to swallow than other losses in the past to Ohio State, just because for once it felt like the offense had just no, the offense has nothing going for it this year, and which is very weird to say, all things considered. Brian Walter says, "Man, our offense sucks. We have no number one wide receivers, no tight ends, poor play calling. Aller sucked today."
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. No, no.
all that is true. I mean,
Yeah.
it is
Both
what it
sides.
is. It is exactly what he said it was, and
Hmm.
we're not here, to make friends. We're here to give the analysis for what it is. We're not going to cut corners. We're going to tell it how it is. And yeah, Penn State's offense was terrible today, and um, I don't see it magically getting a whole lot better. They'll score, I'm sure, 30, 40 points next week against a bad Indiana team. They'll
Mhm.
probably score 30 plus points against Maryland in 2 weeks. But at the end of the day, between Ohio State and Michigan, I don't know if they're going to score a combined 20 points. So
Yeah, I mean, you would hope they score more than 8 points against Michigan, but
sure,
uh,
but did anything tell you today that they
no,
can move the ball against Michigan?
you're right. No, you're 100% spot on. It's brutal.
I'm sure they'll score 14, 17 points on Michigan,
That you would think,
but
nothing's
but
guaranteed.
I don't know how anybody has faith that this Penn State defense can do it against a quality defense, a good defense right now. People will point to the Iowa game, but that's one of those things where Penn State has the better athletes, and
Hmm.
it is what it is. And Penn State had the better offensive line. Penn State's not going to have the better trenches against Michigan. Penn
No,
State, you probably call the athletes probably about even, but at the end of the day, that secondary for Michigan's going to have a field day with these wide receivers unless the wide receivers take a huge step forward in a very short period of time.
yeah, and I just don't. I'll be honest, I don't see it happening, but you never know. I guess that's why they play the game. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Any final thoughts?
no, we've done basically just about everything. I will say, like, if you guys haven't already, just definitely check us out on you're on YouTube listening to us probably. So, we're also going to upload this to Anchor, aka Spotify, Apple Pods, so you can go re-listen to it if you really want to. I wouldn't put myself through that torture personally, but if you want to re-listen to our thoughts or haven't listened to our thoughts yet,
Yeah.
check us out on there. Make
And
sure you go on.
go ahead. I got a slight joke at the end, but go ahead.
Oh God. Make sure you rate and review us. It definitely helps us grow the podcast and get it bigger. We're gonna try to do more of these live streams going forward.
Yeah.
Hopefully more positive ones. Ideally next week we will have a much
Yeah.
more positive one because I've seen this Indiana team play. They're just bad. So let's count a win and call a spade and let's move on to the next one and see if they can do anything down the line against Michigan.
Yeah. No, my own joke was as I'm wearing the Phillies hat today.
Oh,
I pray for all our listeners who are Phillies and Penn State fans. That was not a fun Penn State game for them to sit through, and now
no.
they have to sit through the Phillies. Hopefully, being the Diamondbacks tonight. But I'll tell you, I'm as confident in the Phillies right now as I am confident in this Penn State offense. So,
Not confident.
not confident. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, my final thoughts are really just like Richie said. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and
All that good
yeah,
stuff.
Twitter. Go subscribe over at PennStateRivals.com, or at least sign up for a free account. Join the discussion. I'm sure it'll be heavy for the next 48 hours. But yeah, this is a tough one for Penn State. This is a one that they had the opportunity to go from grade to elite, and they completely whiffed on it. There's a lot of soul searching has to be done today, and yeah, we'll see how they rebound. But Penn State missed a big opportunity today. I'm not telling Penn State fans to give up on the future of Penn State football. I still think it's quite bright, but there's still a big gap between Ohio State and Penn State, and we'll have to see if maybe next year is the year that Penn State can get over that hump. But today was bad, and thanks to everybody for listening to today's episode of this instant recap. We hope that we have more positive ones going forward. We'll be back at it this week. Me, Marty, and Anthony will have a recap. I'm guessing either up early tomorrow or maybe early Monday. We'll see how those go. Anthony had a 12-hour shift at the hospital today, so I'm going to have to let him watch this game to get his thoughts on it.
Don't let him watch
but I know Richie and I also want to get Good Morning Happy Valley going a lot more too over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we're gonna have plenty of content for you guys here on YouTube and over at Penn State Rivals going forward. Yeah, this was a tough one for Penn State, but they'll have to bounce back quickly from this one with Indiana next week, and we'll be sure to talk about that in the upcoming days as well. So we'll talk to everybody soon.
All right, guys, appreciate it. Stay tuned, and we'll have more